Can you see and hear me? Yo, that's very delayed, hey?
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I see we've got a few people with us. I think we'll give the others a couple of minutes and then we'll start. Okay. Today is World Prematurity Day, and I am so super excited to have with us the doctor that started our journey, Dr. Sebetseba, and we get to hear her wonderful story and her journey of being a mom to natural quadruplets. I cannot believe it. I'm shocked, and I'm just as excited as I'm sure everyone else is to hear about your journey. How are you doing tonight, Doc?
I'm well. How are you? Happy Prematurity Day, everyone.
Hey. So, Doc, let's jump right into it. Tell us your story. How did it all start, and at what gestation were your babies born at? Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of what's the word when you like hype everyone up before something starts? So now I'm really anxious that I'm not quite gonna like we're not quite gonna match this like excitement that you've created around me.
I'm sure you will.
I'm really just a normal mom like you. But essentially in 2014, around August, peed on a stick, found out that I was pregnant. No sort of like the normal planning, but not like any sort of fertility treatment or whatever. Went to the, long story short, went to the gynae at 5 weeks, and they essentially told us we were expecting quadruplets.
Wow.
Yeah. I was probably like in shock and denial until the day they were born, and there were actually 4 of them. So yeah, that's exactly what happened, like in a nutshell. I mean, the pregnancy itself was intense and very scary. I learned quite a lot of sort of hard lessons along the way about, you know, the medical field and, you know, how we as people kind of relate to each other. That I think, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but I think definitely sort of made me better and better equipped to do exactly the things that we do. Essentially went into labor at around 21 weeks, stayed in hospital for a super long time. And then they were born at 28 weeks to the day. So the day we turned 28 weeks, they were born. I mean, I had a superhero of an obstetrician. So we had steroids on board and all of that. I think God was obviously with us 100%. Yeah, but essentially at 28 weeks to the day, I went into labor. And so we couldn't keep them in anymore. And they were delivered around 7 o'clock in the evening. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's no magic tricks. Yeah.
Sure. And how long was your hospital stay?
Sure, it was. Do you mean, okay, so before they were born, obviously it was like super long, like 7 weeks long. Yeah, so that was just, on bed rest and that sort of thing. And then them obviously being born at 28 weeks, it's kind of at the cusp of when they start to learn to do anything really. So, everything was immature. Their lungs were immature. Their gastrointestinal tract was immature. They really couldn't do anything. Their brains were immature. Wow. So we stayed in hospital for what seemed like forever. It really did feel like we were never going to leave the hospital. So what I usually tell the mothers or my patients who have prem babies is, and I probably told you the same thing, Tasman, but if you want to not break your heart, if you don't want to be sad, you must kind of plan for the day you were due, kind of plan around that time to go home, to be discharged from the hospital with your baby, barring any sort of serious complications. That's kind of what you aim for. And with us, that was kind of my goalpost. And we went home. My last baby came home 2 days before my initial due date. So my initial due date was the 4th of June. They were born on the 15th of March.
Wow.
And we came home around the 2nd. The last one came home around the 2nd of June. So probably about 2.5 months. So quite a stretch, yeah.
Sure. So obviously it sounds like the babies got discharged at different times. Am I correct in saying so? They all didn't go home at the same time.
Pardon? Sorry, say that again.
I'm saying it sounds like the babies weren't all discharged at the same time. Can you hear us, Doc?
No, absolutely. Yes, I can hear you. So they didn't go home at the same time. And at the time it seemed quite intense. And I'm still kind of grappling with my mind around what's better, around if it's better to kind of be discharged all at once, because then you go from having no babies at home to 4 babies at home, or if it's better to kind of go home in a stepwise fashion. However, the problem with stepwise is that, at some point there were 3 at home and 1 in the hospital, and then you really do find yourself,
torn. Kind of I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's only so many milk runs hubby can do, and leaving me alone with 3 was kind of, I don't want him to leave.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine. Oh my word.
So it was quite intense. So they essentially came home kind of staggered, which I'm grateful for now, because you kind of got into the routine with 1. True. And then another 1 was added to the mix. And then you got into the routine with 2, and then another 1 was added. So like I say, I don't know what's easier, because they both kind of had their things, but it was okay. The way it turned out was hectic, but it was okay.
Sure. And you were you still studying at that time, or had you just finished studying when all of this happened?
Pardon?
I'm saying, were you still studying, or
I think we're having an issue with network.
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you, and I can see you.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Okay, it seems like we've lost the doc, but we'll get her back in a little while. While we wait for her to come back, I'm sure all of you can notice in the background. How do I move out of the way? There we go. I have this memorial wall. So I'm just telling everyone about this, and then we'll jump back in, Doc.
Okay,
I have this memorial wall And we've just gone and I've put up some names of some of the babies that we have lost along our journey. As we all know, in the preemie community, it's so sad, but not all our babies make it. And I just wanted to take a moment to remember our angel babies, because they will always be part of the preemie community. And thank you to those parents that have allowed me to do this. Our prayers are with you today. We're sending you strength and love. Yeah. Cool. Are you good to go, Doc?
Yeah, sorry about that. My network's cross with me for some reason.
No problem at all. We actually have a question for you.
I said no hard question. I did say no hard
question. Yeah, it's an easy one. Okay. So Sharon would like to know, how did you adjust to the change when the babies were small?
Okay, so there is no simple way to adjust to anything. So I think, my story involves 4 babies, but I think even just adjusting to one baby is quite intense, going from like, kind of doing you to being responsible for a whole other human being is quite intense. So I mean, I know my journey is kind of made to be this like noble, heroic, superwoman like thing. But I think you get what you get, I think it's important to realize your limitations, as a human being, as a woman, as a mother. Not all the things that look like they come naturally on TV actually come naturally. Your maternal instinct doesn't kick in till they're like, I mean, I'm not quite sure mine's kicked in, and my boys are almost 6 years old.
I'm sure it's there.
So I do absolutely think that, everyone just kind of writes their own story and we wing it. There is no sort of golden rule to how to adjust. I think you take each day in 24-hour batches and take things as they come. I think, the sort of calmer you are in realizing what you are able to do and what you're not able to do, the better it kind of goes, because then you're not ashamed. You're not ashamed to ask for help from family. Get a nanny, get 2 nannies, get 3 nannies if that's what you need. I think for too long, women are we're kind of prescribed, a lot of things. And one of those things is how to mother our kids and the kind of people that we, need to raise and need to become. And I think as long as you're kind of honest with yourself from the get-go and try your best to not lose who you are, then there is no real way to prescribe how that transition needs to be from, being a single to having 1 or even 4 babies, really.
Sure, that's so true. And when you say just taking it in 24-hour doses, I remember there was a time I was living minute to minute while I was going through this very tough journey. So absolutely, that's some awesome words. So I wanted to find out, were your babies born in private or public hospital?
Are you there?
Yes, we're still here. Can you hear us, Doc? Okay. Can you hear us, Doc?
Tasman, are you there?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
There we go.
Yes, I can hear you too.
So I wanted to know, were your babies born in private or public hospital?
Okay, so my babies were born in private. They were born in a private hospital.
Okay, and the reason why I ask that question is because you've given birth in private, you've worked in both public and private hospital as well. And I just feel like public hospitals get such a bad rap. And myself, having had 3 babies born in 3 different government hospitals, I have had nothing but the best care that the medical industry can offer. So I wanted to find out, what is your take? Is there a difference between private and public care that the parents receive?
So I think fundamentally at the basis of the medical care that your preterm or even term baby will receive in the hospital, the principles are essentially the same. A lot of the doctors are the same. A lot of the nurses are the same. So, I mean, the principles of treatment are the same, and the protocols regarding how we would treat certain conditions are exactly the same. I think obviously the main difference is that in government or in the public sector, the principle of distributive justice essentially has to happen. So we have this much stuff that we more often than not need to divide amongst a much larger population of people. So obviously then the waiting times are going to be longer. One doctor is assigned to a lot more patients. One nurse is assigned to a lot more patients. So I mean that would essentially be the main difference. Obviously ICU beds then are kind of prioritized by illness. Different decisions are kind of made on the basis of who would benefit more from what sort of treatment. So I think from that point of view, I'd say there's a difference between public and private. But in terms of the quality of care, in terms of the level of care that your child receives, I think it's exactly the same.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. So did your babies have any health concerns? Well, obviously being preterm, that comes with its own kettle of fish. And then also post-discharge, were there any health concerns?
So, I mean, I think, like being in hospital for 3 months after you're born and being born at, essentially 6.5 months is a massive health concern. But we're very blessed in that they really were well. None of them ever needed to go onto ventilators.
Oh, wow.
So we were sort of I'm very grateful for that. So in terms of going home, we haven't really had any issues. They've all had neurodevelopmental assessments and all of that, and all of them are really fine. 2 of them have mild asthma, which we know can happen with prem babies, sort of with a mild chronic lung disease and that sort of thing. But not needing oxygen, and it's really really very well controlled. So we are very grateful for that. That because I know the odds were kind of stacked up against us just by sheer number. Yeah, so they are actually well, and I'm so super grateful for that.
That is amazing news to hear. And tell me, what would you have any advice for any parents that their babies do end up having additional health concerns post-discharge?
Yeah. So, I mean, by health concerns, obviously they could range anything from mild to like very severe. So, for example, mild asthma, like I was saying with my own kids, but it could be as severe as cerebral palsy or other neuromuscular problems that result either from infections or from just being born too soon, and kind of a maladaptation in that regard. I think first of all, these mums, these parents, these families that are dealing with kids that have mild, moderate, serious health concerns. First of all, you are superheroes. I think you, on a daily basis, deal with things that the average parent would not even, consider, the things that the average parent would absolutely just not cope with. So first of all, you are superheroes, and you need to take care of yourself, and you need to be kind to yourself. Try and find time for the things that you enjoy. I mean, I think even a child without special needs essentially takes over your life from the moment they're born to the moment, if it's a boy, to the moment they become someone else's problem. Yeah, I'm speaking from experience. But really, kids really do take over your entire life, and more so when they have special needs. So be kind to yourself, take time out, get help, get as much help as you can. Secondly, I would say that, remember that, you're not alone in this journey. And, people may not be going through exactly what you're going through. It really could be a completely different, like you say, a kettle of fish. It could really be a completely different diagnosis, but you're not alone. I've seen so many support groups on Facebook, on Instagram. Things like Premi Connect, where there really is a network of people who are sharing stories, and you realize that these people are complete strangers, but they probably understand what you're going through much more than you'd ever even know. Know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone. Don't be scared to ask for help. Rehab teams. If I just think of, the speech therapists, the OTs, the physios, the neurophysios, like all the people that I've just been exposed to in my professional capacity, like I realize that there are people that are so dedicated, from the time your child is born, really, who are there to help you. So I think the knowledge that you're not alone in all of this really goes a long way, because I imagine there's probably nothing more overwhelming than being unable to completely help your own child. Thirdly, I'd probably say it's important to empower yourself. Read as much as you can about as much as you can. Not on Google, but we'll talk about it.
Absolutely, that was the best advice that you ever gave me. Because when I eventually did go, months after we were discharged, the horrible stuff I saw on there, and I was like, thank you, God, that you gave me that advice. If there was one thing I remembered from our time together, it was that advice. And I continue to share it with my mommies as well.
No, absolutely. I think finding the right resources, often they are available. We just need to look for them. But finding the right resources, reading up as much as you can about your child's condition. It's always so encouraging for us as healthcare professionals when the parents are well informed, because then you're working as a team and you're not kind of, treating weeks apart, but that every day there's a little bit of progress being made in that direction. And again, like, don't lose yourself. Don't beat yourself up for the things that you don't get right, because there's a lot of mistakes that we make along this journey, just as mothers. Don't lose yourself. Be kind. Make time for your spouse, because spouses are special in their own right, but they are a big part of how the journey started. So make time for your spouse, make time for your other kids, and remember that you're only human at the end of the day. So that's what I say. I think more than anything, be kind to yourself and just learn, because it really is it's a journey. It's a marathon. So take it in 24-hour batches. That's what I would say.
That's some awesome advice. We've got another question from Mabatu. She wants to know, how did you manage? It's not on. How did you manage your time, especially sleeping and resting? And I know that was one of the things that you kept repeating to me: get rest, get rest, get rest. And I think it's one of the things that us as parents struggle with, because you just want to be there all the time with your baby. You don't want to miss a second, because you never know. Things change from minute to minute sometimes when you're in the NICU. So how did you manage that? And especially with having 4 babies.
Yes. Yeah. So, first of all, I really think that, so I knew, obviously, when I was in hospital, I kind of had to grapple with the fact that I was not going to take my babies home with me, and that every day that they stayed inside my room was a bonus. So, when they were born, I obviously, and, judging by their size and their gestation, I knew that we were probably in for quite a long hospital stay. And there's like I always say, that there's nothing worse than the day you're discharged from the hospital and you go home and you don't have your baby, or in my case, your baby's with you. And it literally feels like you've left a piece of your heart in the hospital. And even when you're not there, that is the one place that you're thinking about. In retrospect, I'm so grateful because firstly, you need to heal. Your body needs to heal. Your mind needs to heal. You need to sleep in your bed. You need to establish lactation. You need to establish a routine. Especially, for me, the first few months were obviously my routine was express, sleep, go to the hospital. And that was essentially my day for 3 months of, the first 3 months of the boys' lives. In retrospect, I'm really grateful because if there's one thing nurses know how to do is to feed babies on time. So the nice thing is they came home and they were in this very strict routine that I didn't even contribute to. So I can't even take the credit for it, so they came home and they ate every 4 hours, like literally 5 minutes before the 4 hours, they would be crying for a feed. So I could prepare myself. When they slept, I knew they would sleep. Obviously, there's growth spurts and other things, colds and flus and other things in between that interfere with that. But, I was blessed in that, they really did stay in hospital long enough to fall into a very strict routine. And all I did was try and carry that routine as much as possible. So even when I went back to finish specializing as a pediatrician, I just kind of kept that routine in place because then it really did allow me to rest and it allowed me to study. Again, I think, not being afraid to ask for help goes a long way because you need to rest. And I think if we ask, there are actually a lot of people that are willing to help us. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
We've got another one. Piladi says that often mothers to preemies seem to be neglected while their babies are still admitted. From your experience, what sort of support do you think could be offered to moms by the nurses and doctors?
So, I think that's a brilliant question. And I think that, if I had not sort of gone through the whole prem baby situation myself, I probably would have had, zero idea about anything. I think that the system as it is quite tough on mothers. I think that you're kind of the center of attention, and then your baby comes out and he or she is small and they go to ICU and then they become the center of attention. And then there's so much going on that no one, ever stops to say, look, are you okay? How are you coping? How are you feeding? And it's one of those things that we're actually speaking about today that we sort of really need to change. And both in public and in the private sector, there absolutely is no support for mothers. I think there's so much guilt that we carry as mothers to prem babies because you really do feel like, why am I weak? Why did my body need to just carry this child to 6 weeks like every other mother? Why could I not make breast milk in the first 3 days of his life? So we are already, inherently prone to be feeling sort of very guilty and kind of shameful about, what we've gone through. I definitely think that, like I always say, I got a lot of my support from the other preemie moms, which obviously is less than ideal because it's kind of the blind leading the blind, really. Situation, but there's a lot that can come from women who just share their stories, women from completely different backgrounds who just share their stories and how they coped. And it may be something as simple as telling you to drink Stony and it'll help with your breast milk, sharing jungle juice recipes, or telling you how they dealt with their first prem baby and how they got their first prem baby to sleep. And it's little things like that to something as big as being able to say to someone who truly understands what situation you're in that, look, I'm really having a bad day. I'm really not coping today. And the amount of support that comes from that is immense. I think we definitely can do better by way of just informing mothers. You know, I think a lot of mums come into this prematurity journey completely unprepared because you were at your friend's house and you didn't together, you know,
That was me.
you know what I mean? Like, so it's not like this thing where, you know, and like your bag's not even packed and now you're in the hospital, you know, you haven't even had your baby shower, so your baby has nothing. So like, I think a lot of mothers go into this journey completely unprepared. So I absolutely think from a hospital, from a healthcare professional point of view, we can do a lot more just in terms of education, you know, just in terms of sitting with you and saying, look, your baby was born before a time when he was able to do a lot of things for himself. And this means, you know, he will have some jaundice. His tummy isn't ready, so we're going to feed him slowly. His lungs are not ready, and that's why you see this oxygen that's making a really loud noise kind of going into his nose. We've had to give him medication for this. I think that's kind of the way to start. Obviously, you know, with the way things are and the sheer quantity of patients, it's often very difficult to have those conversations. But I do think that we can make more of an effort from a healthcare worker point of view. Absolutely. I think that, you know, like mother support groups, there are a lot of them. Things like Premu Connect. Sorry, Tasman, I'm going to keep referring to
You go ahead.
but things like Premu Connect, where, you know, it's really just mothers who have been through it, who are going through it. I remember last year when we did World Prematurity Day, one of the things that I can't remember her name, I'm really, really sorry, but one of the ladies you sent to the gen when we did World Prem Day, and that thing they did where they handed out letters. So basically what was done was mothers of previously born prem babies, so ex-premies, who had been through the neonatal ICU experience and all of that, drafted letters of, you know, things that I wish I had known or wishes that I have for you and your baby. And I think for me, that was literally the highlight of my World Prematurity Day, because I don't think that anyone can really speak, you know, for something until you've experienced it. You know, there's I mean, I think for myself, there's so much that I learned about prematurity and parenting and all of that in, you know, in varsity and in, you know, in my registrar time and in my route to specialization, but absolutely nothing could have taught me as much as having my boys did, you know, just from a human point of view. So I absolutely think that networks and channels like these are such a great way to go about the whole process of supporting mothers, because wow, it's a lot.
It is. Absolutely. And how vital do you think is parental involvement in the care of babies while they are in the NICU? Because a lot of times, depending on who was on our shift, we definitely felt a bit sidebarred. But there were a lot of nurses that allowed us to, majority of them, in fact, allowed us to do the personal care ourselves, which actually helped in the long term, because by the time we got discharged, we were ready to take home this small, tiny person, and we knew how to care for them. So personally, I know that it helps. What's your view on parental involvement?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it goes without say that, you know, the children born to parents who are involved, you know, be it from a preterm in ICU level to a school-going level, generally do better. We know that, like, I always think of myself, and I think when I first saw these little children of mine that were 900 grams and looked like mice, essentially, I didn't bond immediately. I didn't look at them lovingly and think, oh, my babies, you know, because we always picture a baby to be this like chubby, chunky, happy, cryy, not this like mousy thing that's the size of your hand, you know. So it's very, very hard to bond with a prem. On top of that, the usual principles of skin to skin contact, you know, breastfeeding immediately, all those beautiful things do not happen when you have a prem baby, because they kind of whisked away into ICU and you only see them like, you know, a couple of days later or the next day or whatever the case may be. So, you know, baseline, I think it's very, very difficult to bond with a prem baby. And I think that's, you know, I think just the little things that we take for granted, you know, just letting you know, the mother touch her baby, just stroke their hand, you know, letting them change the nappy, you know, letting them wipe their face with cotton wool. I mean, we absolutely advocate for kangaroo mother care and skin to skin contact because of the multiple health benefits, you know, both for mom and baby. But I think a lot of the time there's so much fear, and not just on the part of the mother, because this child is so small. And the number of times I've heard dads say, "I'm so scared I'm going to break him," you know, like, so just in terms of that, but also from the nurse's point of view, you know, we're worried that you'll disconnect the CPAP machine, or you know, the drip might come out, or you know, so there's a lot of fear surrounding that, you know, and just the fragility of a prem baby. But I think, you know, I think parental intervention goes a long way, especially in terms of kickstarting that bonding process that isn't always there, you know, because the normal natural flow of things doesn't happen with prem babies. So absolutely, it's vital.
Sure. And as we all know, we're currently going through the pandemic, COVID, and it has affected a lot of stuff in the health sector, just the way you guys work, the way you move, even to the care that people can receive. Like, everything is now, the focus has been essentially on the pandemic itself. How do you feel the pandemic has affected prematurity in South Africa, just from what you have gotten to see working on the ground?
Okay, so I mean, I know you're asking about South Africa, and I think this is such a pertinent question, you know, given what we're going through at the moment, and everything just kind of been, you know, completely different to what you know, everything's unprecedented and completely different to what we've known before. But interestingly, I was reading an article today, and there's a lot of studies coming out of Europe, and I know you asked about South Africa, but I'm just going to throw this in there. But there's a lot of studies coming out of Europe that showed that overall the prematurity, the preterm birth rates actually went down, you know, once they went into a hard lockdown. And that speaks to, you know, obviously socioeconomic things, you know, like going to work and having a stressful boss who like upsets you, and then you go into preterm labor. It speaks to pollution. It speaks to, you know, exposure to infections and that sort of thing. So, I mean, it's not all bad. Yes, COVID is, you know, the big C, the horrible monster that's kind of taken over our lives at the moment. But that was quite a nice sort of silver lining for me, to find that overall the preterm birth rates actually went down in Europe. It would be interesting to see what kind of data came, you know, out of South Africa, you know, in that respect. On the other hand, you know, we can't deny, you know, the seemingly sort of massive, exaggerated steps that you know, hospitals and, I mean, essentially the country as a whole has had to take in order to kind of mitigate the risk with COVID. You know, I know I said that thing about decreased preterm rates, but we know that mothers, babies born to COVID positive mums are at an increased rate, at increased risk, sorry, of preterm birth and intrauterine growth restriction. So those are, you know, generally smaller babies, you know, than the normal term unexposed babies. I think, you know, practically what all these kind of strategies that have happened, you know, to kind of keep the babies safe, keep the mothers safe, keep the, you know, kind of keep, you know, the hospital sort of COVID free. Obviously, you know, in terms of, you know, the practicalities of it, if we think about, you know, the fact that, you know, for a long time fathers were allowed to room in, mothers were allowed to room in, and now there's all these rules about visiting hours, and massive restrictions are being placed, you know, on birthing partners. So when my sister had a baby in May, and she didn't have a birthing partner with her, so she was, you know, essentially alone through that Caesar, which I think is terrible, you know. But besides that, you know, after, when you're in the ward, there's no one really there to support you, you know. where before, like I think once a week, grandparents were allowed in the hospital. None of that is happening now. And even the mothers, even the mothers who could typically kind of come in almost whenever are now kind of restricted as well. That obviously then speaks to bonding, it speaks to the ability to produce breast milk, because what stimulation does your body have at that stage. So I think that it's been massive, and I think that we're only now going to start seeing the effects that these prolonged separations and all of that have really done, in terms of newborn care, in terms of their neurodevelopmental outcomes, in terms of bonding, in terms of breastfeeding practice. I think we're only about to start seeing, the real effects that these have had. But it's interesting times.
So I just wanted to jump in on there as well, because you talk about the stats in Europe. We actually have a survey going on at the moment, for those of you who don't know, and we would love to have the moms who have given birth during this pandemic reply to the questions on that survey for our stats in South Africa, because from what I've seen and heard on the ground, to me, it seems as though we've had an increase in preterm birth. And I can understand why, because a lot of people have lost their jobs during this. So it's adding more stress. And I just feel like, unlike with our European counterparts, where their government is looking after them quite well, we have been left to fend for ourselves, essentially. So please, everybody, if you can take a moment, I have shared on the page before, just look up the link. I will repost it again after this live. It would be interesting to see where do we sit when it comes to that. And I also feel that I'm sad for the babies, especially the preterms that are being separated from their families, their parents during this time. I mean, when I had to leave my baby just for those few hours at night, it was the hardest thing for me to do. So to go days without seeing your child, I can't even begin to imagine how the parents are coping, how the babies are coping. It's just horrible. And it would be nice if just some special treatment could be given, at least for those preemies, for them to have their parents there. Because, I mean, you go from your mom and dad being the only voices and her heartbeat being the only heartbeat that you know, to just machines, essentially. So hopefully someone out there, Department of Health, will see this and will think of changing some things.
It's tricky. It's
absolutely tricky. And we have you touched a bit on breastfeeding. Did you manage to breastfeed 4 babies? I'm dying to know that.
Okay, so again, I was sort of very lucky in that respect, in that I did breastfeed, and I did, fortunately have enough milk for them. I remember in the first week where I was, very sort of unwell, having had complications of the delivery. I was very unwell, and not in a position where I was able to even give them, colostrum, which, when people are speaking about colostrum, they act like it's this thing that just like falls out of your boobs and you don't have to do anything about it. You're like, just give us some colostrum, So I was in a position where I was not able to even give my babies colostrum in that first week. And I remember, must have been one of the pediatricians coming to me with a donor breast milk form and saying to me, we need you to sign for donor milk, because your babies are starting to feed. And I remember that was probably the hardest signature I've ever had to put on a piece of paper, because to me, it felt like you can't even make breast milk. You know what I mean? It literally felt like, the epitome of failing as a mom, because I thought, it's this thing, it's just going to like squirt out of your boob. And you're going to look each other in the eyes, and it's going to be this like lovely, amazing thing. And like not having milk and having to sign for some faceless angel out there to essentially breastfeed my kids, because I was not able to was inexplicably difficult. And I think now just touching on donor milk, I mean, I think it's an incredible initiative, especially
Absolutely. It's so little recognition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think breastfeeding your own kid is hard. And then these people that don't even want, money or to be like recognized in any way, just give liters and liters and liters of their breast milk. And they really are such heroes. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. Having said that, it's still very difficult to accept that you can't breastfeed, your child. And me with my medical background, also knowing, formula and prems and all the horror stories about, necrotizing enterocolitis and all of that stuff didn't help the guilt at all. So, I mean, I think then I kind of went on this journey of like, I will breastfeed, so it really kind of forced me into breastfeeding my kids. It really was such an eye opener. I mean, it wasn't easy. I really did have to express every single 2 hours, even at night, even when I was asleep. I would wake up every 2 hours and express for 20 minutes on each side. So every 2 hours I'd express for 40 minutes. So, that on its own is exhausting.
Training.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really is, it's a commitment. I was speaking to one of the lactation consultants last week, and she was saying that she always tells her patients that it's like learning to drive, like in the beginning, you have to put in the work. It's not this like super easy thing. You have to learn the clutch control, and you're going to stall a couple of times, and you might crash into, someone's car or crash into a wall, but, just keep at it, in the same breath. I think that, for mothers who can't breastfeed, for mothers who've, surpassed that, kind of gone past that donor milk period, because obviously that's only available for the first 2 weeks in really small babies. There's just so much guilt and so much shaming around feeding your baby. And I think formulas are pretty good these days, and it will never be breast milk. It'll mostly, be cow's milk or soya or that sort of thing. But they're very good in terms of what they're able to provide your baby. So I really think that guilt needs to fall away. And if you can't breastfeed your baby, like whatever, you know what I mean? As long as you're
fed is best at the end of the day.
Exactly. Absolutely. I 100. Oh my gosh, I'm going to turn that into a hashtag. That's great. I love that. So I think that guilt just needs to go away also.
Definitely. Your breastfeeding story sounds a lot like mine, because I was like, if that is the only way that I can contribute to my child's well-being, well, God damn it, I'm going to pump until I can't pump no more. Yep. So I totally get that. Okay, prematurity is such a taboo subject. I personally, I know people that have had prem babies, family members that have had prem babies, but nobody really, really talks about prematurity. Babies come home and it's like the family gets to see the end result. We know it's not the end result, but they get to see a healthy baby when the baby comes home. So they don't fully understand the journey that you have been on, and they don't get the road that you are on at the moment, because they just think baby's out of hospital, that means baby's fine, and we run with it. Yeah, so is there any advice that you can give? How do we go about educating those around us, first and foremost, about prematurity? Because today I struggle to get that point across to a lot of people. They just, people don't seem to understand it. And I want it to be that when a person says premature, everybody will know, like other diseases, not diseases, but other things. Like if you speak about cancer, people know about cancer. If you speak about HIV, people know about HIV. We want, when we say the words premature, they know exactly what it is that we're talking about. So are there any maybe tips or tricks or advice that if you have just had a premature baby, you can go and give to your family so that they are prepared and they are informed about the journey that you are going to be walking on?
So, I mean, I'm going to answer this as a mom and not as a doctor because I don't have like this like super excellent, amazing, one size fits all advice from a doctor's point of view. But as a mom, I feel like, so I'll speak about myself. And I think I was so traumatized and sort of so unknowingly traumatized about the journey I had gone through, with the pregnancy, with the boys being born at that gestation and being so small and going through all of that. I think I was so traumatized about the journey that I did not speak about it for a long time. And I think that's what happens, And I think that as soon as you kind of leave the hospital, as soon as your 3 months is up or however long you stay, and you come home and you kind of adapt to your new life and you kind of get into the routines of daily living, very quickly that experience that you've just been through kind of falls away. And everyone tells you this, you'll have a prem baby and you'll be in the hospital forever, but once you get home you kind of forget about it very quickly, and it even feels distant, like it happened to someone else. And I think that's a big part of the problem. We come out and then we so quickly adapt to our new life, our new normal, and we get to, and then we go back to work, and then the kids go to school, and and then because of that, to everyone around us, it seems like, it was just one of those things that you just went through, Unfortunately, life has taught us that it doesn't wait for you to, feel sorry for yourself because you've had a prem baby. So I think we do kind of go into this adapt or die mode. And we really just, get into it. And I think a big part of the problem is that we don't speak about it enough. I mean, you mentioned cancer, for example. I think there's so many people that advocate for cancer. Like if you just look on your social media, there are people that are literally advocating for cancer all the time. I think that, from a personal point of view, as people who have experienced it, we don't necessarily advocate for it enough. And I think family kind of, feeds off our energy and kind of deals with it the way we've dealt with it, So when you don't talk and, you're fine and everything's adapted and everything's okay, then no one really knows what you've been through, And I mean, no one is born knowing another person's feelings. You kind of have to speak out about the things that you are passionate about. And I don't think that happens enough. I mean, I can speak for myself that I was just so traumatized. I was just like, okay, well, they're alive now. Let's just like carry on. Let's move on. Do the things that need to be done. Keep them alive. That sort of thing. So, I mean, I do think, that we do need to talk about it more, especially as people who've been there, because we're probably in a better situation to truly understand what the people are going through currently, and actually able to give tangible support, because we know exactly what they've been through. So, yeah.
So talking about how phenomenal you are, last year, you and your colleagues did something amazing and took on the Warrior Challenge to raise funds to make over the breastfeeding room at Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital, which, by the way, wow, where did you find time to train for a whole race? And secondly, coming from a mom that spent millions of hours sitting in one of those rooms, I feel like it's a simple gesture, but that's going to make the world of difference to those mommies that will be in that breastfeeding room. So tell us a little bit more about that. What made you guys decide to do something so awesome?
Mm. 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 Okay, so the short answer to that is that my friend forced me. That's the short answer. The long, sort of noble answer. But really the reason we did it is that, I mean, it's like, I mean, yes, it was hard and we were running in the sun and it was muddy and dirty and, fun in retrospect, but like not at the time, right? And really, we're not the heroes in this. if you think of those moms that leave their houses every day, and don't actually, often they'll get on a taxi and come to the hospital without even lunch for the day, and and driving to the hospital, they don't really know what they'll find when they get there. They don't really know what turn their prem baby that was born at 800 grams has taken today, yet they go day in and day out, and they sit there and they laugh and have conversations and have frankly, very normal conversations while they try and express for their babies. And those babies that are fighting battles that we know absolutely nothing about, like all sorts of sepsis and all sorts of things that came to them even before they were born. So, I mean, I think that they are really the heroes, them and the people that donated the money to actually build the
True.
So I don't think we're the heroes in this. I absolutely think there were other heroes. We just kind of took on the face and ran through some obstacle courses. Absolutely, yeah.
Somebody wants to know, do you still have 2+ nannies? I don't think you said you had 2+ nannies.
So what I said was, if you need 2+ nannies, nobody can judge you,
And how are you coping since the kids are big now? I still think 4 boys can be so busy.
Yeah, no, I mean they break everything in the house, and they drive us a bit crazy. But they're big now, So in terms of the practical things, they feed themselves, they potty train, they go to school during the day. And I think, I'm always so grateful that I didn't have one child before this, because then I think I would have died, because I would have just compared. I would have been like, when I had one child, I had time to go and whatever. I think I was lucky, and I think when God knew that He just had to throw me in there, because otherwise, So I mean, I'm grateful that I don't have, this is my baseline. So I mean, we're okay. We actually don't have a nanny at the moment, but we'll get there. We're actually okay. They really do. They really wake up and get ready and go to school and come back.
Oh man.
And so it's a lot easier now. In the beginning, obviously, I needed to at a time, which came with its own dramas. Yeah, but we're okay now.
So before we go, do you have any advice for any parents that find themselves in the situation that we found out?
Again? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear us, Doc?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
So I was saying, do you have any advice for our new preemie parents who find themselves in the situation that we found ourselves in?
Yes, I can hear you.
Doc, can you hear me?
Can I ask you to repeat the question? I didn't quite get it. You said, do I have any advice for?
The new preemie parents who find themselves sitting in the same situation that we found ourselves in a few years ago. What advice would you give to a new preemie parent? No Google and...
Okay. Yes. Okay. So first of all, no Google. As I said, no 2 situations are the same. I mean, I found in my own experience that Google really tells you the worst case scenario, and it more often than not is not even remotely related to your case. So, using Google as a sort of free platform of basket advice is never a good idea. And you will think your child is dying every step of the way. I think allow the doctors and the nurses in the hospital to be your Google. Keep yourself as informed as is humanly possible. Rest a lot, take care of yourself, accept all the help. that you can get, because once your baby comes home, that, you know, that kind of falls away, and it literally is your baby. Yeah, write it all down. I think document every journey in the process, because looking back, all you do is marvel at just how amazing preterm babies really are. Like, the caliber of strength in that little person will amaze you beyond your wildest expectations. So write it down. I think at the time it's quite traumatic, and it's not easy to be taking photos and to be writing, you know, today this happened at the hospital. But in retrospect, it absolutely is so therapeutic and just brings, you know, so much gratitude to a situation that starts out in a way that we wouldn't necessarily have asked for. So yes, that definitely document everything, get lots of help. Forgive your body, you know, forgive your body. You know, there's so much guilt around feeding, around the prematurity and how it came about. You know, forgive yourself, give yourself a little bit of time to mourn, and then move on. Take each day in 24-hour batches, because like I said, it's a marathon and it's a roller coaster. But, you know, roll with the punches, essentially, because that's all we can do. There's really no prescribed way of dealing with, you know, when life throws you a curveball. So yeah, that's the advice that I would give.
With that being said, thank you so much, Doc, for joining us. I enjoyed our chat thoroughly.
Yeah,
and everybody that came in, thank you for interacting and sending in your questions. We really, really do appreciate it. And let us enjoy what's left of our prematurity evening. Thank you guys so much.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Tasman. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.